Greetings and welcome to In the Trees, the cannabis, gardening, and lifestyle podcast highlighting methods, products, growers, and breeders from Maine, the East Coast, and beyond. I'm your host, Mr. Roots, and I'm stoked to deliver you the lowdown on all things cannabis, presented not just for the well-vetted OGs in the garden, but for those buying a seed pack to grow their very first garden. This show is especially for those buying their very first cannabis to try. If you are listening in your car, sit back, relax, and strap on your seatbelt. And if you are listening in the garden, turn us up so you can hear us over the fans. Sending out good vibes from the rock-bound coast of Maine, we are In the Trees. In the Trees wants to give a big shout out to our friends and Maine-based surfboard shapers, McDermott Shapes. Since 2004, McDermott Shapes has built hand-shaped, custom surf and paddle boards for riders all over the world. They are respected standouts in the surf industry through their environmental stewardship, which means greener board manufacturing practices without sacrificing quality and rideability. If you are looking for a beautiful yet affordable surf or paddleboard, check out McDermott Shapes online at mcdermottshapes.com and at McDermott Shapes on Instagram. Tell them Roots from In the Trees podcast sent you to receive 10% off your custom shape today. Surf's up! Welcome back. This is episode 2 of the In the Trees podcast. Last episode was part 1 with Sean from Melting Pot Farm, whose vast knowledge on many of the elite East Coast cannabis strains is a pleasure to listen to. This episode is the second part of the interview. I find Melting Pot Farm's perspective on growing and breeding very refreshing. In a world where so many are thinking factory farming for the herb, he has a nice balance with the plant in both business and lifestyle. His commitment to well-vetted strain selections for craft gardening practices make him someone that modern growers, especially those with only a few years under their belts, should listen closely to. If you would like to dig deeper into the knowledge that Melting Pot Farm brings to the cannabis community, search for Melting Pot ICMAG online to see some of many forum threads that he started on growing and crossing some elite strains of cannabis. You are going to love part 2 of Melting Pot's interview, but first, here is something special for you. Spontaneous combustion. Yeah. Now here's a feature with guests of the podcast, enjoying products from growers, caregiver stores, and good folks in the scene, many who have been guests of the show. It's a thing we call spontaneous combustion. My buddy Grape grows in the studio, and him and I did a little something where we visited a local caregiver storefront without a script, without a premise necessarily, except for just to stop by and have a look at it and see what it was all about, because as growers, we don't always get to visit these caregiver storefronts, because why would we? We grow our own medicine. Our finger isn't always on the pulse of what things taste like, smell like, and the effects of them. And that is what makes this bit really poignant and really important, I think, for the community at large, is to have people that are committed to organic cultivation and quality cultivation really stopping by and having a look at what's going on at some of these storefronts, so that everyday people in the state of Maine get to know maybe what we think about some of these establishments. And this is what Grape Grows has to say.
I'm going to take a toke here.
This is some GMO SIF rosin by Hazy Hill Farm that I was there when you scooped it up, so I know what you're smoking on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, an introduction to what I'm smoking, take a hit here. Hazy Hill GMO SIF rosin. the famous garlic cookies. Most people prefer it to be the garlic cookies. I don't know. I think of it as a savory strain, so I prefer to keep it that.
Yeah, because GMO can have the genetically modified organism connotation.
Yeah.
Add some negative to it.
I'm not even gonna.
Oh, okay, you're not going down there.
No. I mean, I thought of something I just saw recently online. Someone got a bunch of flack for calling out the GMO strain for being GMO when they actually thought it was GMO. But it's not. But yeah, so Hazy Hill, this is my first product I've ever purchased from a store, as I was saying. Like that hit I took one hit, and I'm feeling it of the GMO dry sift. It's very good. Yeah. I'm smoking it out of a Pulsar atomizer, so it's like a handheld atomizer. It's basically hooked up to like an Aegis mod rig, like a vape rig, but so it's just got coils in it. But yeah.
What would you say that GMO sift rosin from Hazy Hill Farm smells like when you're not burning it, or when it's not vaporizing?
Let
rather?
me open this up for you and give it a whiff. Yeah. Definitely garlicky. Like I said, it's just such a I can't help it. It's just so savory. Like it's a refreshment from like not to knock on fruity strains, but like Chernobyl and stuff is just so fruity and sour. But like this is usually most marijuana now these days is all dessert. This is like the steak. This is like a plate. It's when I smell it, it's hearty. Yeah. Just that, and maybe the garlic funk that you get off it that gives it that makes me almost hungry. It's weird, but yeah, I get like super garlic smell off it when I'm not burning it. Major garlic. It just reminds me of meaty, but I get more fuel when I burn it. When I smoke it, I feel that I get more of a fuel taste from it, and more of a garlic.
So is that the only taste that you get from it is fuel, or you get some more out of it? Is there? No,
that meatiness is in there too. Yeah, but more fuel when more of the chems coming through when I smoke it. Absolutely, I feel. Every time I smell it, I was like, it might just be because in my mind I think garlic cookies, so it might be a placebo. But in my opinion, I get like just garlic funk, and I love garlic, so I want there to be garlic there too, almost.
That is something. That is the part of the premise of spontaneous combustion. Actually, is to ask people what things smell like and taste like, because you could have something that was blueberry cookies or blueberry muffin, a strain, and you could have somebody take a whiff off it and say, smells like weed to me.
Yeah, see, my wife, for a long time, all right, maybe it's because I sucked at growing for the first 3 years, but for the first 3 years, my wife was like, this smells like hay. And I was like, what? Yeah, I was like, why not? And she didn't give a shit. She was like, yeah, smells like hay. You suck. And so, like, it took a long ass time. I think maybe eventually she just realized how offended I was, and she just stopped saying it smells like hay.
I think I really hurt his feelings that time.
Or honestly, because she doesn't say it smells like hay anymore, she's actually accurate. So I think she was just trying to offend my weed, just to be like weed's not cool.
You better up your game.
Yeah, like honestly, because now like anything I like offer to smell her, she'll actually like hit on it. She'll be like, oh yeah, because she doesn't smoke marijuana. She's smoked marijuana like twice probably, and so it's funny when I get her to smell stuff like that. But like, so I don't know. I don't think it might not be what I want to be there, because other strains that are super potent that people agree on what it is. But like, this is garlic to me for sure. Savory, salt and pepper. But I don't know. No, there's no pepper to it, but like it's that. You know what I mean? It's seasoned.
A seasoned steak, kind of like but like a meal.
Yeah, it's very good. I feel it in my eyes, for sure.
So when you're taking dabs of that, how many dabs are you taking to get to the level you want to get to?
So honestly, 2 or 3 hits, nothing more. And it's not even really dabs, because this doesn't like, it's not like a full-on dab rig.
Right.
But
have you put it through a rig yet?
I have not. No, I probably won't, honestly. I'm super impressed with how strong it is through this. I've put straight up concentrates in this same exact setup that weren't as strong as this dry sift. So hats off to Hazy Hill for the product. Honestly, it's actually really impressive and super tasty, really smooth. I was really happy with it. I'm about halfway through it right now. And like, GMO is one of my favorites. It's one I've been able to grow. I was lucky enough to grow, and one of my favorites to grow. Next, probably second to wedding cake, because just wedding cake yields are crazy. But like GMO, it dumps. Everyone wants that with strain just because of the extracts you can get off it. But absolutely one of my favorites, and hats off to them, because I haven't been growing it myself for a long time now. So it's good to have it back.
Yeah.
Quality.
Oh, sweet, man. Yeah. Shout out Hazy Hill Farm. You're doing it right.
Yeah, thank you.
How would you describe the effects on this sift rosin?
Very heady, honestly, but I can feel it in the body too. It's all over. I would say it's strong.
Right.
It's a strong effect, absolutely.
Does it come on sudden, or does it take a little bit?
No, it's probably been 10 minutes now since I hit, and it's been coming on stronger. So it's one of those ones that just keeps coming on and on.
No ceiling, you think? Or there's probably a ceiling, but it might be.
Yeah, there's a ceiling, but like once you're there, you're not hitting it again for another 30 minutes. It's one of those ones you don't hit. You're just like, oh,
I forgot.
Yeah, you go back, and then you're like, and then you get back into that space of you don't need the hit.
Right.
Yep. It's definitely a great body, great head high, great combination of both.
The next time you're on Weed Maps, type in All Kind and give them a follow. All Kind is a medical caregiver storefront in downtown Portland, Maine, specializing in finely crafted infused Belgian chocolate and other tasty cannabis edibles and products. We are proudly supported by All Kind and personally love their high-quality products. Check them out at allkind.buzz on Instagram, or go to their website, allkind.buzz, to check out their great selection. Listeners of the show receive a 10% discount by mentioning In the Trees podcast to your bud tender at All Kind. Here it is, the one you have been waiting for. Part 2 of Melting Pot Farms interview on In the Trees podcast. What do you think about people making crosses and releasing them untested?
I understand that everyone comes from a different spot. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't outrage me. And I know that there are people who are just trying to get by. You know, some people are just trying to get by financially. Some people are filling gaps socially. Some people just need to feel like a part of something. All of those are fine reasons for them to make seeds and sell them. I'm not going to tell anyone that I don't agree with what they're doing. I could tell you what I think is right and wrong, and someone could come in here and just tell me that I'm right and wrong, or what I'm doing wrong. So I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't go out of my way to support someone who's doing something like that, but I also wouldn't put energy into calling them out or making them feel bad for what they're doing.
Nice. That's a good non-judgmental way to approach it, because it is very common. Yeah, I respect that approach that you have.
And as the time goes on, it is honestly what's being supported. You'd almost have to critique the customers more heavily than you'd have to critique the sellers. Because if they're supporting something that doesn't have a foundation, I guess I'd have to take a whole nother role in life, and that would be to take a megaphone and to tell everyone what I think is right and wrong with the world. Maybe 20 years ago.
So in that same line, how much testing do you think should go into a cross before it's brought to market? Or do you have any opinion about that?
I'd want it heavily tested by growers that were going to be the people who were purchasing my seeds. So you can hand seeds off to professionals who know the nuance and ins and out, and they're going to get different results than a home grower will. If you're selling seeds for the home grower to just buy a pack, or if I would want them heavily tested to the point where they're going to have results where they feel like they got their money's worth or more out of the seeds. And even more so than the financial, the money spent, is I don't want to be selling them a hassle. I don't want to be selling them something that's going to need an extreme amount of grow knowledge to get a product that's what they're expecting. And I also don't want to give them something that's going to lead them to a room full of hermaphrodites or just something that's not in their expectations.
Those expectations, I feel like, are higher than they've ever been, with social media putting out photographs of certain genetics, and then someone would say, well, I'm going to buy a pack of F1s and all the females are going to look just like that.
Yeah, there are more people who are in, around, and focused on cannabis and genetics than ever. And they also, they have access to it at all times by going in their phone. It's very rare that people are going to put up pictures of their failures or of the selections that really just didn't come through in a seed pack. So, there are a handful of breeders out there that give you a very clear view of what they're doing, a look into their spot, a look at the progeny, a realistic approach of what you're going to be getting when you buy their packs. And, that's very few and far between. I hold the consumer accountable.
People should do their homework is what you're saying.
If you have high expectations, yeah. And if you're just doing it for fun and you want to crack as many seeds as possible, then just have fun with it. But do as much research as you have expectations.
That's great advice. Yeah. I saw a photo of a gorgeous sunset sherbet crossed with lemon tree stud that you had. How often are you seeing resin on males in your sifts, like non-sprayed or reversed?
In regular seeds, I see it more rarely. In reversals, the plant seems to hold on to more of its feminine traits, even though it's passing pollen and showing male sex parts. And it's crazy. It just shows there's no end to the learning with any of this stuff, because 5 or 8 years ago, that was a big part of what I was looking for, or even if not even searching for, but if I came across a male with resin, you get excited and it makes you think this is the one because it's going to pass that trait on. And like I said, even 5 years ago, that would have been something where I would have made sure to hold it in thoughts that it would pass properly. But now, based on what I'm learning still, and being lucky enough to take in information from people who've been doing this longer, is that resin, just like stigmas, 10 years ago, you were told those are the males you want to look for because they'll pass on traits. Now I'm learning that maybe some of that advice was just taken based on the strength of these people's names and or their, they had more of a say in the business. And I looked up to them because they were my elders, where now I'm realizing that if you're making regular seeds, those traits are actually feminine traits. So you wouldn't want to use them in regular lines. So resin, as much as it's nice to, it's a visual, where males don't give you many visuals to show what their progeny will give. So right off the bat, you're going to cling to it. But that doesn't mean that the males are going to be that your progeny is going to be more resinous. If anything, it should be giving you a cue that they're more apt to be intersex. But that's something even I wouldn't have even taken into account until very recently, because I'm still trying to take in information from people. And in the world that we have today, where I have access to so many more knowledgeable breeders who have gone through way larger sifts and seen the results of way more combinations than I can ever have. One thing that they'll pass on is don't go clinging to feminine traits in your males, thinking that it's going to be a positive.
Yeah, very interesting advice there.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy. Because there is the assumption that resin males are going to pass on even more trichome production, which they're going to be a better hash strain.
And if someone ran all that in front of me and I saw that, I may sway back and say, hey, you know what? I'll reconsider it again. But now the people that I look up to are all reinforcing the other side.
That's good to stay open-minded in this field.
Yep.
Because so much has not been vetted.
You got it.
As a result of the oppression of the plant.
You got it. And there's always someone who's seen more and done more. And if you're not open to what they have to say because you've already come to your own conclusions or take someone else's word as the end all, you're in the wrong business.
We have to have thick skin and not be so rigid, I guess,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's another thing that's tough is that a lot of us were raised in this culture where, you only got stories by the fire type of knowledge, where it was someone passed it along to you, you looked up to them, so their word was stone to you, whether it was your buddy's older brother who gave you your first grow light, or DJ Short because it was the first breeding book that you looked up to. And now it just happens that years later you can look back and say, hey, maybe their selections weren't deep enough or their mindset wasn't open enough.
That's progression in a nutshell.
That's it.
Well, yeah, that sunset sherbet lemon tree stud definitely looked amazing. So yeah,
I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome, man. So the Pido male that I noticed a photo of, did you select that male?
That's a feminized girl. She's seemingly getting pretty well known in the Northeast. It is a animal cookies crossed to Star Dog, made by a gentleman out west named True Grit, that was hybridized, feminized by a gentleman named Canorado. with his infamous grape pie clone, which is a grape stomper crossed to cherry pie. So that pack was sourced by a local Mainer named Mega Raw Melts. And he was very lucky to source that pie dough pack because he's good friends with Canorado. So, and his number 4 that came from that pack is just an extremely special specimen. So I'm not very well versed in the hash game. The gentleman who runs Mega Raw Melts could give you a little more info on, the percentages and all those things. But what it comes down to is she is a provider.
Yeah.
When it comes to resin.
I've taken a nice dab of that a couple times with my buddy Bang Melts, and tasty stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fulfilling. Like we were talking about earlier, satisfaction all around. Flavors, very fulfilling expansion, and it doesn't leave you needing to smoke anything afterwards. So the male that you saw, or the male version of that clone, was a reversal that I did for Mega Raw Melts. He was one of the very few people who got packs of pie dough. There was very limited release. So it was just a way to just up the numbers of seeds.
I actually kicked myself for passing on a pack of that back at one of those IPK shows down in Portland, High Striker Farms there.
Yes, sir.
He was East Coast Canorado.
Another great local, very good gentleman. Yeah, so I don't push anyone, but I do try to give everyone the notion that just keep looking for the next thing. Don't go looking for what everyone else is looking for. So Mega Raw Melts is a great example of that, where his brand now is the home of pie dough. He doesn't have to worry about anyone who's gonna be pushing the product, doing it better than him or different than him. He doesn't have to worry about anyone degrading the name. So I think that that's how you can gain security in this business today, where you see a lot of people who are trying to hunt down clones of the past few years to keep up with the Joneses out of fear that they don't have it, instead of just thinking, I'm going to break through with my own little pocket of something that they're confident with. And if if you're confident enough with your product and it sells itself like the pie dough does, you gain your security because you're now out of the race of trying to track down the next clone that keeps you relevant. Right.
That is so common in the cannabis scene today. People, whether it's with the MAC, whether it's with GMO, or a lot of these, to me, newer strains, everybody seems to want those, and then they want to make crosses with them, and that's great, because they're fantastic strains. I've smoked both of them. I enjoy them, and I try to keep an open mind to these new strains. But there's a lot of genetics out there from back in the day. And we could even call back in the day 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. You could go in 5-year increments to back in the day. There's stuff that gets overlooked that is equally, and I dare say more so, beautiful or valuable than some of those genetics that people kind of don't chase.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a different era. It really is. I think I always say the boxes that we check off, but it used to be someone would hand you a joint and you'd smoke it. And based on the effect, you'd say, oh, Jesus, what is that? Let me see that. And then you see it and you've taken it in. Now you have a recognition with how it looks, and you put the puzzles together and maybe can say, oh, so I've had something that tastes like that and it looked kind of like that. Where today's era is, you've already seen that. You know what you want. You need to source that, not even as a grower, just as a consumer. It's already been the picture. You've been told repeatedly that it is the best and it's what you want. And by the time you actually get to smoking it and enjoying it, you may have checked off so many boxes of fulfillment that even if it's not fulfilling you as smoke, you just put it in the I like that category.
A lot of that can happen with the brands.
Yeah.
If a brand, because it's so interesting that that's how it is now in modern cannabis, is saying that that's fire, then you're going to assume that it is. And then when you try it, it's almost like there's a bit of bias there in regards to that. And that's fine.
It is. At some point, I'm just going to be an old man telling stories. I'm already sound like, man, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, get off my lawn.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think as keepers of the fire, it is good to remind nicely occasionally that like, well, actually, maybe go back and try Shahazarad
Yeah.
or some of these older strains. And what do you think about that? It could blow some people's minds, and it happens regularly.
It's like, you see it. It's like bell bottoms, it comes back. I smell so much train wreck these days, renamed. Like half of these new West Coast strains, almost, they come across like train wreck on the nose, Bubba Kush. And I'm like, man, it's just the fact that I'm getting older is that we already saw these boats fly by. We recognize them, and people, it's the new hot stuff. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, obviously, since the era of Instagram has leaned towards looks, So I don't know. It makes you seem crazy to grow some scraggly looking stuff that tastes good and fulfills you. But
you mean like hazes?
Hazes, yeah, diesels. Doesn't really go well on the shelves, but I think if it were handed to you just in a joint and you didn't have any notions previous, it would be the most fulfilling.
You can't really chase effects going off of what something looks like in a jar or off of a photo on Instagram.
No.
That seems to be lost on a lot of folks in today's scene, which is okay once again,
Yep.
it just is.
Yep.
Yeah. What sort of intentions do you set now when making a cross in regards to which parents you think will work best to create good offspring?
I'll generally work my way backwards. I don't market seeds. So none of it is for what do I think will push the hardest, because I don't sell seeds. So there'll be times where I'm progressing a line that I've years put into that it just seems like it's the right time to progress it. There are times where I just have a limited amount of seeds and I want to increase them, so I'll just make seeds just to up the amount of seeds I have. There will be times like with the pie dough, a collaboration with a local brand where we want to make sure that they're progressing. So I'm playing the role of the seed maker to make them proprietary feminized seeds so they can sift through the stock, find their selection that no one else has, and market it. As far as the people I'm close to that I want to see survive in this game, I want to see them being progressive. And I feel like genetics, with all the variables in growing, genetics are one of the few things that can keep you progressive.
Agreed. That's really cool that you're doing that with folks and assisting in that way. I think it's really cool that the limelight, so to speak, is something that you're not chasing after, but yet you're putting so much in. That's extremely valuable, man.
I appreciate it.
And very humble.
Yeah.
Which is rare in today's, because Instagram, people have a tendency with Instagram to just kind of, I'll even put it on myself. You have a brand and you try to like pump that brand and you try to get it out there because there's this conception that we have to gain a foothold. Otherwise, interest from away might move in and steamroll us. But to be one of the underground folks really trying to big up your friends, like, hey man, hats off to you for that. That's altruistic. That's amazing. So
yeah, at some point you're not going to be here. So all you're going to have is what you did and what you left behind. And one thing about cannabis seeds is I don't have children, but I have a lot of lines that will be here a lot longer than I will be. And yeah, it's easy enough to pass on seeds, and you can do a lot of good by passing on seeds.
Yeah, definitely. Do you do any work with any other vegetable seeds? Have you made your own tomato or pepper variety?
I haven't. No. There are a few things that I'm hard on myself on, and that's one of them is that I don't grow much besides cannabis. I grew up in a house where every windowsill had herbs on it. Every 4x4 possible was a new garden bed. I really went all in with the cannabis thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy I'll go into nurseries and walk through all the greenhouses, and I love it.
Something that I really respect about you, man, is you keep a positive vibe on social media. Even your logo's happy, right? And
that's it.
Smiley face.
That's right.
How do you maintain this when there can be so many kind of judgy people or so much kind of haters out there?
Yeah.
Right. How do you feel that?
I guess I haven't had to deal with too much of that, luckily. I'm pretty firm on myself, you know? Anyone who knows me closely knows that I'm big on accountability. You know, I don't look to give myself excuses or anything like that. I hope that, you know, if anyone had a problem with me personally or what I was doing, that they would be able to approach me and we could just come to an understanding of what the issue was. But the simple answer is I just don't have time for anything like that. You know, I just don't have time for it. I'm very lucky to be where I am in life, and I'm very happy. And I'm not trying to drag anyone down, and I don't have a history of trying to drag people down. So hopefully, there's not anyone out there who has a long list of things to use against me to gain a lot of hate.
It sounds like accountability, like personal accountability, is pretty big with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of that can be taken care of in-house. You know?
And that doesn't happen overnight. That's based on me being past free, you know, to the point where I didn't, you know, I did what I wanted to do. I wasn't accountable. I didn't hold people accountable, and life was a free for all, which is great. And I had fun with that. But I also understand that how you come across, and if you do what you say, and if you just tread lightly, don't burn bridges, all those cliches, you know, you can't see a mob of haters following you.
Respect on that. Well, that's fantastic advice for anybody. Yeah. Well, I got a couple questions here that I put it out there to a couple of people. Is there anything you want to ask Melting Pot? I got Farmer Juan Love off Instagram that came back with a couple good questions. First of all, do you make any crosses that are specific to outdoor cultivation?
The feminized stuff, just for safety's sake, I consider it. If I were to ever sell seeds, I would market feminized seeds as outdoor seeds, not to get in people's pockets, just because of the way they express themselves. I can't say generally like I've run a million of them, but from what I understand, some of their wonky tendencies for intersex and things like that, Mother Nature dissolves, right? So I would feel more comfortable selling feminized seeds as outdoor seeds that can be grown indoors with a higher risk of intersex or odd showings, right? I don't have enough history growing outdoor in the Northeast to sit here and try and provide for something I don't know enough about. So last year I made some seeds that I think would go well, but until locals who know the environment and are a little more versed in outdoor crack those and test them. So short answer is no, I haven't specifically.
That environmental aspect is paramount with them.
Yeah. I really haven't spent any time growing outdoors, and I haven't spent the time to pick the right brains on it, you know?
Yeah. So he wrote, what are your favorite beans currently in the old school varieties and also in the hype varieties? He said, saying beans, I think he's meaning seeds, but he probably also means cuts or cuttings. So maybe a favorite old school cuts, and then what are your favorite new ones that are?
Okay. Yeah, some of the old school clones, like you mentioned earlier, ChemDog D, Sour Diesels, that Underdog, you know, the old OG Kushes. I really like the Irene Kush, which is a more rare one that you don't see around. Yeah, there's such a long list. And as far as the new stuff, I find like a lot of it that I prefer. I don't really like the plants where their marketability is high. They smoke proper. I don't like the structure of the plants and the way that they perform, but I'm willing to run them for the product. And then there are some plants that perform well, and the product doesn't work for me. I love Gorilla Glue.
Yeah, it's a tasty one.
Yeah, she's got she got worn down as far as the name over the past 5 or 8 years, but I love Gorilla Glue. It's a plant that, you know, it's a tough tackle the first time you grow her, but she works for you, not against you. She provides unbelievable amount, and it's extremely savory smoke, and I'm a very particular smoker. So just the fact that she can provide that much of such high quality.
That's what we're seeing with the GMO too. But
you're taking the words. That's where I was going to go next, where, yeah, I guess GG4 doesn't answer the question of the newer hype.
Oh, no. It does for you and I.
Correct. Yeah. Now, and even GMO probably wouldn't even be considered newer hype. But yeah, GMO is another one where it's like, she's working for me. Yeah. The second I plug her in, it's like, okay, let's go. She's working for me. And she provides, and her the product that she gives is top tier.
A friend of mine, he said that he threw a bunch in a ditch, a bunch of clones.
Yep.
Just to kind of, maybe like have a spot.
Yep.
0 fungal pathogens.
Yeah.
0 molds and mildews on them. They just vigorous and put out produce. So
she's unbelievable. She's a record breaker for me indoors.
nice.
Yep.
Yeah, grams per watt.
Yeah, just shattered everything I've ever thought existed.
Very cool.
Yep. It takes a while to get to the finish line with her, but she's a rarity. I mean, she's nothing new to me in a pipe. It's nothing that I would say that's my new favorite hype strain. Mm-hmm. So if I had to, of all of the hype stuff that I've smoked over the past couple of years, oh man, it's a very tough one. I mean, I like some of the cookies. I'll tell you what, Do-si-dos, there you go. Do-si-dos is one where it couldn't have come more hyped and it couldn't have been more fulfilling. It's not the greatest plant to grow, but she's damn consistent, is very fulfilling. And it's one of the few times that I got a clone that I was like, she's going to be some overhyped, just marketable cookies. And the second you got a chance to put a lighter to her, she showed you that just some good, proper herb.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. You're maybe one of the best people to ask this question because you work with the Underdog. You work with a lot of chem strains. You love all those. And then you just mentioned cookies and loving those too. You're very bipartisan about.
Well, I'll say the Do-si-dos specifically, the cookies that's used in that for a needing fulfillment smoker is the cookies that provides the fulfillment. She's not a plant that you want to grow. She should have been killed based on her pattern of growth. Luckily, someone held on to her, and she is the cookie for someone who smokes Chem Dog and OG that you can put it right in rotation. She's just a little prettier.
Yeah.
So the Do-si-dos really brings on the fulfillment of the OG Kush Breath in an even prettier package.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Well, I think that about wraps it up, man. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this recording. And yeah, it's fantastic to sit down with you. And
I really appreciate it. It's been a different morning for me.
Yeah.
You brought back some cool memories.
Oh, cool, man. That's awesome. Oh yeah. Just as an aside, what about an old school cut? Favorite old school cut?
Favorite old school cut? I mean, it's going to be tough for anyone who knows me to sit here and say, why aren't you already screaming sour diesel to the ceiling? So we could just keep it at that.
Yeah.
Properly grown sour diesel, properly maintained, sour diesel. It's a tough one to beat. So, and that's where, we'll call that old school enough.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's the one.
Sour.
Yep. She's the one where you walk in the house and the person you're in the house says, shut the door. There's a skunk out there. And they don't realize you're bringing it in with you.
Right. All right. Sean from Melting Pot Farms. Yeah, man. Blessings to you, man. Thanks so much. And
I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Good times in the studio. Special thanks to Hazy Hill Farm Sift Rosin for today's spontaneous combustion. And our reviewer, Grape Grows. Follow today's guests and show them some love on Instagram at Grape Grows and Hazy Hill at Hazy Hill Farm. Thanks to Sean from Melting Pot Farm for his wealth of knowledge. If you haven't already, give him a follow on Instagram at Melting Pot Farm and look for his amazing flower at Sensimilla 207 in Lewiston, Maine, as well as Stone Coast Cannabis, where you can check out some great products like the quality Hazy Hill Farm rosin reviewed on today's show. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so you don't miss a thing. You can reach me and the In the Trees team via direct message on Instagram or by visiting inthetreespodcast.com to send us an email. If you would like to show In the Trees even more love and support, look us up on Patreon under In the Trees Podcast and feel free to donate to the show. In the Trees Podcast is a labor of love by the great audiophile OG Cushion, the lovely web designer Kush Kitten, and myself to provide a quality show for listeners like you. We are so grateful for your Patreon support because it allows us to continue providing fun and educational podcast episodes like the one you just listened to, and maybe get some better mics and stuff for the studio. Apart from having access to a ton of behind-the-scenes audio and video, including raw cuts of myself talking like a pirate, Patreon supporters also get the opportunity to score a pack of cannabis seeds, which are for sprinkling on your salad or feeding your cockatiel.